Lacture-6. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the session today. I hope my voice is clearly audible. You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. All right, great. Great. So we'll proceed ahead with the discussions where we left yesterday. Right, we were discussing about the logical operators. We'll dive a little more into the if conditions. All right, I'll walk you through a few functions that works on if conditions. Right, so let me share my screen. All right, so I hope everyone is able to see my screen. Right, so this was the topic that we were discussing yesterday. Let me just give you a walkthrough. Right, we have this data set. We had this data set which contains the students' data, right? Name of the students and their marks scored in mathematics, physics, and chemistry. Right, and overall, this is the overall marks, which is all these marks are individually calculated out of 100. Right, so based on this, we carried out we used various functions, right? Starting with the if function in this particular column, right? We checked whether the marks in physics or mathematics is greater than 80. So this is the function that we used, which is the OR function, and it gave me the results in the form of a Boolean value, which is either true or false. Right? In the similar way, in the next column, we use the AND condition or AND logical operator to check whether the marks in mathematics and physics is greater than 80. So which basically means individually in each of these subjects in physics and mathematics, the marks has to be greater than 80. Then only we'll get the true as the output. Otherwise, we'll get a false as the output. Right? Now, next we worked upon the if-else condition, right? We checked whether the marks is greater than 80, and then we provide something called as math scholarship, right? And I gave you the homework related to the same. You have to check for chemistry scholarship and physics scholarship. I hope everyone has done that, right? And next we checked whether the marks in both mathematics and chemistry is greater than 80. So here we used if along with and. Right, so this is the AND condition, and that this we have used inside the if. Right, so based on this, we calculated or we gave the output. All right, so this is the overall what we discussed yesterday, and these are a few homeworks that I gave you in yesterday's session. Right, so first is you have to use the OR function to check whether the marks is greater than 90 in either of maths or chemistry. Right, so you can simply use the OR function and check. You'll get the Boolean value as the output. I hope everyone has attempted this particular homework. All right, so as already informed in the previous session, this is just a demo data, so you can simply prepare this data. I also gave you time to take the screenshot in yesterday's session. Right, so this is how you're going to get this data. All right, this is just a demonstration data, 6 rows of records. This can be manually created as well. Right, so let's proceed ahead with the discussions further. Let me just walk you through any of the questions that you think we need to discuss in the live session, right? You can simply mention the question number, right? Out of 1 to 7, we'll discuss maximum of 2 questions out of these. Right, so anyone, okay, let's take votes. Let's say if anyone wants me to explain the question number 2, could raise their hands. I'll get this idea. All right. All right. I'm lowering everyone's hands now. Okay, any votes for question number 3, that you have to not apply a not function on the output of AND operator? Okay, I'm lowering everyone's hands again. Right. Okay, let's check for question number 4. We have to check whether the marks in physics and chemistry is greater than 80, and you need to provide the relevant scholarship, right? So this can be solved like how we solved the math scholarship. In the similar way, we can solve for chemistry scholarship and physics scholarship individually. All right. Okay. Let's proceed ahead with, okay, let's check for question number 5, right? You need to check if the marks in both physics and chemistry, mathematics is greater than 80, and print district scholarship to. All right. Okay. So let's lower everyone's hands now. Finally, the question number 7, if you need to check whether the marks in all the subjects is greater than 90, and you have to provide national scholarship. You can raise your hands if you want me to discuss question number 7. Okay. Okay, let me just walk you through, right? Let's discuss question number 7, where you need to check whether the marks is greater than 90 in all 3 subjects, and you have to provide the national scholarship if it passes, right? So this is question number 7, right? So this is the solution. We'll have to check for marks greater than 90 in all 3. Right, so this can be implemented very straightforward. I'll be using the if condition. Inside this, I'll be using AND. All right, and the first is, let's say this is greater than 90, followed by marks in physics also greater than 90, followed by marks in chemistry is greater than 90. Right, so if this condition fits true, will provide something called as national scholarship, right? Else will provide no scholarship. Right, so let's execute this. The student is not getting the scholarship, right? So let's see if any student passes this criteria. So basically there's one student only, and the name of the student is Arjun. He's the only student who's getting more than 90 marks in all 3 subjects, and hence he's receiving the national scholarship. All right. So this is how it can be done. Right. Now let's proceed ahead. Let's take the same data again. Right, and let's paste this data. All right, and now right, so we already discussed about the if condition, right? Today, what we are going to discuss is we are going to discuss about IFS, right? So IFS is basically multiple if conditions, those are applied, right? So here, if condition basically checks whether one or more conditions are met and returns a value corresponding to the first true condition, right? So how this can be used is, let's take the another data set, right? The data set that we were discussing in the percentiles part. Let's take this data all together, all right? And let's paste it here. Okay, so this is the data that we have. And again, we need to insert the first row, right? And inserting the first row will basically mention the name of the columns. So this is employee ID, right? This is employee name. This is the designation of the employee, followed by the department in which employee works into, followed by the business unit, right? Followed by the gender of the employee, followed by the ethnicity, followed by the age of the employee. This is the joining date, right? This is the salary employee receives. This is the hike that employee took in the previous hike season. This is the country column. This is the city column. And finally, this is the resignation date. Right, so these are the tables. I'll simply select everything and format it as table so that I will be able to apply the sorting, filtering, etc. These columns. All right, so this data is already shared with you on the GitHub link that I've already shared in the previous sessions, right? Now, what we are going to do is we'll simply check for each of these columns and we'll apply the if conditions. All right, so multiple if conditions can be applied using IFS. All right, so IFS basically checks multiple conditions and returns you the true value. So let's check. We'll start with the first column, right? So what we are going to check is, let's provide the logical test. Maybe if the salary is greater than $100,000, right? This is the condition. We'll provide the value if true, right? So let's say we'll divide the complete salary into 3 categories, right? So from 0 to 100,000, right? 1,000 to 200,000 and so on. All right, so value, let's provide the value as maybe group C, right? And let's provide the second logical test. Maybe if the hike is greater than 10%, right? We'll simply provide the greater hike. Right, so let's put these 2 conditions only. Here, what we have done is we have checked whether salary is greater than $100,000. Right, so okay, this is basically $10,000. Let me make it to $100,000. Right, so if this condition is met, this is the group C is the output that we are going to get. And if the hike is greater than 10%, we'll simply mention greater hike. All right, so let's see what we are getting as the output. All right, so for here in this column, we are getting group C as the output because the salary is greater than $100,000. All right, so this is 100,000. right? In all these columns, we are not getting any output. We are getting, okay, so value not available error. Let's see. All right, so here we are not getting any output because IFS will basically work only with the when the condition is met, right? Since we are checking for multiple conditions, hence we are always providing a value if the condition is met. All right, since here the salary is also not greater than $100,000 and the hike is also not greater than 10%, hence we are not getting any output. All right, same goes with this particular data. All right, so if we, let's say we can mention additional data as well. Let's say, all right, so here we'll mention the third condition. Right, so if let's say the hike is less than or equal to 5%, so the value that we are going to provide here will be lower hike. Right, so let's try and execute this. So we are getting a lot of lower hikes here because the salary is already less than $100,000 and the hike is also less than or equal to 5%. Right, so here you can see in this particular row, the row number 3. Right, if we check the salary, it's less than $100,000 and hike is also less than 0.5%. Right, at the same time, if we check the row number 5 here, the salary is less than $100,000 and the hike is greater than 0.5%. Right, so we are getting the third condition, or this is the output that we are getting. Okay, so okay, we are getting some wrong output here, right? Because lower hike is mentioned against the hike is less than or equal to 5%. But since here the first condition is not met, the second condition is not met, and even the third condition is not met, yet we are getting the output for third condition. Okay, so this is the value if true. This is the second logical test. And this is the value if true. Okay, not a problem. I'll be fixing this, right? Not a problem. We are getting some incorrect output here. All right. Surely I'll have this. Okay, let me explain you this the same question using another example. right? So this will basically help you to understand this in a better way. Right, so let's create a new column here, maybe column 2, right? And this column, what we'll do is we'll try to convert. Okay, let's insert a new column here. All right, we'll try to convert the ethnicity into their code names, right? So we'll keep, let's say B for Black, A for Asian, C for Caucasian, right? L for Latino. These are the only 4 columns that we have, or 4 classes, right? So what we are going to do is we'll simply use the IFS condition, right? We'll simply mention if, let's say, this is equals to Black, simply mention capital B, right? Now, the second logical condition is if, let's say, this is equals to Asian, we'll simply mention capital A here, right? If, let's say, this is equals to Caucasian, we'll simply mention capital C, and if this value is equals to Latino, simply mention capital L. Right? So this way we are going to convert the ethnicity of any employee into the encoded name, right? So let's check whether we are getting the correct output or not. So here, Black, we are getting B. For Asian, we are getting A. For Caucasian, we are getting capital C. And let's check for Latino. So here also, for Latino, we are getting capital L. Right? So this is the data. We are getting the correct outputs here. Right? So this way, you can basically convert, you can basically use IFS, right, which is ifs. You can mention multiple conditions and you'll be able to get the relevant output. All right, so yes, of course, we can use nested if as well, right? So since nested if is a little complex and nested if can be applied maybe on single column only, right? At the same time, let's say IFS can be applied on multiple columns. Right? So, okay, so hike is basically the hike that this employee has received in the previous hike season. Right? This is what your hike column says. Right? So I'm just removing this particular column as of now. Right? All right. So, okay, if one of you is asking, what if 2 conditions are true in nested if? So if 2 conditions are true in nested if, the first thing is you're making a logical error while writing the functions. The second thing is the output of the first condition will be applied in nested if. If your same output is facing or is satisfied in more than one if conditions. All right, so let's move ahead. Right, so purpose of using IFS function. So the purpose of using ifs function is when you want to check on multiple conditions, right? So that is the purpose of IFS. All right. So, okay. One of you is asking for, let's say, check on the gender column and the age column, right? So, of course, we can apply that. But the thing is, it will be applied, it can be applied using nested if, right? So how nested if can be used? The problem statement is, let's say if the female is greater than 50 years, she's senior citizen female, and if male is greater than 50 years, he'll be senior citizen male, right? So let's try and test these conditions. We'll be using if, all right? The first logical test is, I'll be using and here, right? And this should be equal to female, followed by the age should be, let's say, greater than 50 years, right? If both of these conditions are met, the value that I'll be getting as the output, or that the value that I want as output is, let's say, senior citizen female, right? Now, the second condition is I'll be using if here, right? And again, I'll be using and. Right. So, okay, I think my system is not responding. Right, just give me a moment, guys. I think my system is not responding. All right, please give me a moment, right? I need to All right, so I think my system has started working. Let me share the screen. I hope everyone is able to see my screen here. Right, so okay. So proceeding ahead, here also we need to use another AND along with if. Right, so here we'll be using if followed by an AND, right? And will check whether this is equals to, let's say, male, followed by the age should be equal to, should be greater than 50 years, right? If both of these conditions are met, then we want, let's say, senior citizen male, right? And otherwise, we'll simply print out not senior citizen, right? So let's check whether we have mentioned the correct in the output. Maybe something went wrong, I guess. Okay, I think we lost the formula. I'll simply mention it one more time. Simply check whether this is female. Right, followed by the age should be greater than 50 years. If this is met, we want senior citizen female. Right, and here we'll mention if and along with, let's say, if this is equals to male, and the second condition is age should be greater than 50. He will be senior citizen male. Right? Otherwise, senior citizen male. Right? Otherwise, we want not senior citizen. All right, so let's see what is the output we are getting here. Okay, so here we are getting a few outputs. Let's say this is senior citizen female. Let's check the condition. Gender is female, age is greater than 50 years. Right, he's senior citizen male. So let's say age is great. The gender is male, age is 59. He's not a senior citizen because the gender is female, but age is equals to 50, right? We have mentioned greater than 50. So this is how we can basically even cross-check whether the condition that we have written is correct or not. All right, so I hope this part is clear. I'll just simply repeat what we have done in this particular formula is we simply have checked whether the gender is female and age is greater than 55 years. So she will be senior citizen female. If the age is greater than 55 and the gender is male, then he is senior citizen male. And finally, if both of these conditions does not match, he is not a senior citizen. Right? So this is the output that we are getting. Right? So if works with almost every, like there are various functions with which if works. right? So let's check what all are the functions with which if works. First is the average function, average if. All right. Okay. So let's check average if. We have count if, we have maximum if, minimum if, and sum if. Let's check all these functions one by one, right? So that we get this idea. All right. So what we are going to do is we are going to simply find the minimum age for male employees, right? How this can be done is we'll simply use min if. All right. So it returns the minimum value among cells specified in a given set of conditions or criteria, right? So let's check. I have to first mention the minimum range. So this will be the range of data on which minimum value has to be found out. Since we want the age of minimum age of the male employee, right? So what we'll do is we'll simply mention the age column in the minimum range criteria. All right. Now, the criteria, I have to mention the criteria range based on which I want to filter out the data. Since I want to filter out the data for minimum age in the male employees, what I'll mention here is criteria range 1 will be the minimum age in the male employees, right? So I'll mention the gender of the employee followed by the criteria. Now the criteria has to be male. All right. So this is the data on which I want the minimum age. If I execute this, this is 25 years. All right. So how this can be verified is the minimum age of a male employee, we are getting 25. Right. Let's check the same for female employees, and then we'll let's say cross check both of these whether we have found out the correct value or not. Right. So again, I'll simply use minimum if the range criteria will be age. All right. Now the criteria range I have to mention. This is the criteria range. This is basically the range on which I'll be mentioning the criteria, and the criteria is female. All right. So let's check the minimum age of female employees also 25. Let's check for both of them. Let's filter out the male employees first, right? So these are all the list of male employees. If I pass the age column here, okay, so the count is 483, right? And if you mention the minimum, if I let's say use the minimum function here, right? So let's say I'm using here the minimum function on the age column, and these age columns are purely for the male gender only. All right, so here I'm getting 25 as the output. So this is how we can verify. Same goes with the female employees as well. Right, so guys, I've already informed this data set has already been shared with you in last 2 sessions, right? Even last 3 sessions, the data was uploaded almost 2 weeks back, right? The GitHub link is already shared with everyone. If you're missing out on GitHub link every time, I'll share it one more time towards the end of the session today, all right? Let's clear all the filters from the gender column, and the data of the output that we have got is perfectly correct, right? The same can be applied on maxif, right? There's a function called maxif. Maxif is again, we can find the maximum age of a male employee and maximum age of a female employee. The range that we'll be mentioning is the age column, right? This is the column on which maximum age has to be found out. Now I have to mention the criteria range. So this is the criteria range, and the criteria will be female. Right. So let's find out the maximum age of a female employee. I close this bracket, 65 is the maximum age of a female employee, right? And the same can be done on the male employees, right? So I'll simply mention the age here. I'll mention the criteria range is the gender column and the criteria is male this time. Let's find the maximum age for male employees. Okay, so here also we are getting 65. Let's check. Let's say if I sort based on this data, right? So let's say if I'll sort from largest to smallest here. So maximum age is 65 for female and maximum age is 65 for male, right? So let's change any one of these. Maybe let's change for the male employee from 65 to 68. Let's see if we are getting the correct output. So yes, this is the maximum age for male employee. All right, and let's change this to, instead of 65, let's change it to 66. So yes, we are getting the correct output, right? So this is maximum female and this is the maximum age for a male. All right. In the similar way, you can find various based on various conditions, you can find the maximum and minimum values. Okay, so okay, one of you is saying, can we use the term according to us like minimum and IFS? You cannot use according to you. Basically, there is a list of formulas, those are already available in Excel, right? Since we are working on logical formulas, you can see these are the logical formulas. We have used and, false, if, right? We have used IFS, we have used not, or, true, etc. Right? Since we are working with the logical functions and formulas. At the same time, there are multiple other formulas as well, like we'll be working on average, average ifs, right? We'll be working on other statistical formulas as well, like count, count A, correlation, mean, covariance, etc. Count F, right? We'll be working on these formulas in the coming times, right? So based on that only, we have various other formulas, right? Related to mathematics and trigonometry, related to lookup and references, related to date and time, related to the text data if you're handling, right? If you're working on financial data, you can simply use the financial formulas and so on. Right, so you can go through this particular list of formulas, those are already available. And there are some additional additional formulas that can be embedded for the analysis of data. Right, so when you're referencing to the columns, Excel will take the name of the column itself. You don't have to mention every time, right? You simply click on the cell that you want to check for a particular value, and Excel will take the reference of that formula automatically. You don't have to do it again. All right. Now, okay, so some of you are asking me to walk you through again through this data, how maximum if and minimum if is used, right? So let's check on the salary column this time. Let's find the minimum salary of a male employee, right? So what we'll do is we'll simply use minimum if, right? In the range criteria, we'll mention the salary column. On this column, minimum value will be found out based on the gender column, right? So gender will simply mention that I want gender as male. All right, I'll close this bracket. So this is the minimum salary a male draws, right? Let's find the minimum salary a female draws from this organization, right? So let's say I'll apply on the salary column. I'll check the gender column and I'll simply mention the gender has to be female. All right, let's see the minimum salary of female draws is greater than the minimum salary of male draws, right? Now let's check the maximum salary of female draws. So that I can simply use max IFS function, simply mention the salary. I'll simply mention the gender as female. All right, close this bracket and let's see. So this is the maximum salary a female draws, right? And let's find the maximum salary a male draws. So let's say the salary, I'll mention in the gender as male. All right, okay, so I've just put a double comma here. I have to put a single comma, right? So this is the maximum salary a male draws, right? So clearly the maximum salary drawn by a female is greater than the maximum salary drawn by a male in this particular organization. And the minimum salary drawn by a female is greater than the minimum salary drawn by a male employee. Right, so this is how you can analyze the data and you can mention this. Okay, one of you is asking what could be the second minimum salary if male. So let's say you have to find the second minimum salary. What can be done here is you simply use the if function, right? Simply check if the gender is female here or gender is male here, right? So let's say on this particular column, I'm checking if the gender is equals to male, all right? So this way I'll be able to filter out all the males and all right, so value if true, I'll simply use, let's say, I'll simply use the small function here, right? And small function will be on the salary column and the value of k is to be 2, right? So let's check if this works out. Okay, so this clearly says it is a false, right? So this way we'll be able to create for the complete column and there will be only one data that will be giving us the second minimum value, right? So this is how you can find out the second minimum value if the gender is female. Right, now your homework is you have to apply the same on the hike column. I'll simply remove this, right? You have to apply the same on the hike column and find out the minimum and maximum hike achieved or the minimum and maximum hike that this organization gave to their respective male and female employees. All right, and simply compare on this sample data. Right. So yes, guys, this is how we are taking. All right. So, okay, how do you find out who is making more, who is taking maximum salary, male or female? So basically you can filter out like this. And now I hope you can compare 4 values, right? Let's say if talking about the minimum values, which number is greater is basically the gender that is making more minimum salary. All right. And same goes with the maximum salary. You can compare these 2 figures and check which gender in this organization is making more maximum salaries. All right. Now, in the similar way, you can find the average of this employee's salary. Let's say the average salary of a male employee in the average age of a male employee in this organization, right? So let's work on the salary column only. You can work as a part of your homework on age column and the height column, right? So here we will try to find out the average salary of a male employee in this organization, right? So we'll simply use average if, right? Average if basically finds the arithmetic mean of the cell specified by a given condition or criteria, right? So the range that I'll be mentioning is the salary column. All right. Okay, so here I have to mention the range. All right, I have to mention the range first. So the range will be the gender column. Next, I have to mention the criteria. So criteria has to be male employees. All right. And then I have to mention the average range. So average range is the salary column because I want to find the average salary of the male employees. Right. So I'll close this bracket and we can check the average salary of a male employee is 114,188. Right. At the same time, let's check the average salary of a female employee in this organization. Again, we'll use the average if. Right, and average if will simply mention the range as gender, right? And the condition is, or the criteria is female, and the average range would be the salary column. I'll close this bracket and let's see the output. So this is the average salary of a female, right? So the average salary of a male employee is higher than the average salary of a female employee in this organization. Yet the maximum salary that a female draws and the maximum salary a male draws, there's a difference, and maximum salary drawn by a female is greater than the maximum salary drawn by a male employee, right? So this is how you're going to analyze your data. Let's say this data is given. Let's say I ask you to, let's say, analyze the salary column based on various conditions, right? So you can do this. Maybe you can filter out based on the ethnicity, and you can find based on from which race the employees are making more salary, right? Maybe let's say you can find the maximum salary of based on ethnicity, right? Maybe from the Black ethnicity, you can find maximum based on Asians, right? Maximum based on maybe Caucasian, right? Maximum salary of a Latino, right? At the same time, you can find the average salaries this way. You can find the average salary of a employee from Latino race. You can find the average salary of an Asian employee, right? There are multiple things that can be figured out or that can be analyzed, right? So let's say the average salary of a Caucasian in this organization, right? All these are your homeworks. You need to do this, right? You will be using the same criteria. You can also find the same on salary and height columns, right? So this way you can easily find the outputs. All right. Now moving on. Okay, so how can you find out the maximum salary drawn by which ethnicity? Okay, so this you see based on you can in Excel you cannot find the relevant informations, right? When I say relevant informations, basically is maximum salary is drawn by which ethnicity is the output, or is the statement that requires references of more than two output when you'll be working on one column and getting the output from other column, right? So this way, these kind of outputs is not given in Excel. Excel is purely used for calculations, right? So these kind of answers will be hard to be given from Excel worksheets, right? So for this, we will be using the data wrangling in Python, right? By using the pandas data frame. So we'll be covering this very soon. Right, so this is how you can simply find various outputs, right? Or maybe you can find the maximum salary of a employee who belongs to United States, right? So let's try to find this. Maybe I'll be using the max if, right? I have to mention the maximum range criteria. So this will be the salary column. Next, I have to mention the criteria range. So criteria has to be the country column. And then finally, I have to mention the criteria. The criteria is United States. Right. So let's check the maximum salary drawn by the employee from United States is 258,498. All right. So this value is exactly same as the maximum salary drawn by any female employee. Right? So there are chances that this female belongs to US only. All right. In the similar way, you can find the maximum salary drawn by any other country, maybe Brazil. Right. So I'll be again using the maxif function here. Right. I have to mention the maximum criteria range. So this is the max range. I have to mention the criteria range now. So this will be the country column. And finally, I have to mention the criteria will be Brazil. If I close this bracket, let's see, right? So 258,426 is the maximum salary drawn by a person or the employee who belongs to Brazil. Right? Same you can compare with maybe other countries, China, and so on. Right? All right, guys. So please take 5 minutes of break and then we'll proceed ahead with the discussions further. All right, guys. So let's proceed ahead with the discussions further. Let's discuss about the count function now, right? What does a count function do in Excel and how count can be applied, right? So there are basically various types of count functions in Excel, right? We'll be discussing about count, count A, count blank, count if, and count ifs, right? Now, let's see what each of this function does. Starting with the count function, what it will do is, if you check the doc string here, it will count the number of cells in a given range that contains numbers. All right, so the count function is only going to count the number of cells that contain numbers, right? If number is not present, that cell will not be counted, right? So for example, let's say if I apply the count function on maybe the salary column, right? Since all these are numbers, it will tell me exactly how many records are present, which contains numbers, right? So if I put enter here, this says 1000, right? This I have applied on the salary column. Let's apply the same count function on maybe country column. Let's apply this on country column. And let's see what will be the output. Let's apply the count function itself, the country column, right? So if I execute this, this is giving me 0 as the output. Why it is giving me 0 as the output? Because my country column does not contain any numbers, right? So this is the use of a count function. This will help you to identify all the cells that contains numbers, right? So since name of a country is not a number, although all the cells are filled out, then also the count function is not counting them, right? Now, this is where count A function comes to rescue, right? What does count A does? Let's read the doc string of this. Count A basically counts the number of cells. Those are not empty, right? There's a difference between the cell that contains numbers and the cell that is not empty. So count A is going to count the number of cells that is not empty. Let's apply this on salary column. When I'm applying on salary column, I'm getting the output as 1001. So this is basically all the records of the table, including the name of the column itself, which is the first row, right? But my count did not count the name of the column because it is not a number. All right, but count A will count all the non-empty records, right? In the similar way, let's say if I apply the count A function on the country column, this will count the total number of cells that contains any value, right? Which is basically they are not empty. So if I execute this here also, I'm getting 1001 as the output. All right. So guys, I hope my voice is clearly audible. You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. Okay, great. Great. So yes, guys, those who are not able to hear me, please rejoin the session, right? Or always try to join the session through your web browser, right? Avoid using the application as of now because the server is quite down for the application. All right, so proceeding ahead further, we have a function called count blank. Count blank, as the name itself says, right? Count blank will basically count the number of empty cells specified in the range of values. All right, so what I'll do is, since count blank is going to count the number of empty cells, I'll only mention instead of mentioning the complete column, right? If I mention the complete column, what will happen is, in this particular sheet, I have record up till 1000 only, right? If you check 1001 row, this is the last record that we have. But since it is going to count the number of blank cells, right? So it will basically go on counting up till the range of Excel, right? Which we of course do not want. So what we are going to do is, we are going to instead of selecting the complete column, we'll simply select the cells, right, from O2 to O1001, because we already know until where the data is present, right? So if I check this, it's giving me 915. So basically, there are only 915 cells in this particular column, which is resignation date, that does not contain a resigning date. What can I conclude from this? The things I can conclude from here is basically out of 1000 employees, there are 915 employees who are still working in this organization, and rest other, which is 1000 minus 915, 85 employees have already resigned from the company, right? So this is how I can extract this information by analyzing the data. Right? So this is how you can easily find or basically make use of count blank. Right? Next, let's discuss about the COUNTIF function. COUNTIF will basically count based on a particular criteria. You'll have to mention the criteria and it will count based on that. Let's check how COUNTIF works. Right, so COUNTIF will basically count number of cells within a given range that meet a given condition. Right. So here, let's count the total number of female employees working in this organization. I'll execute this. It needs range and criteria, only two things. All right. Let's provide the range first. Since we are counting the total number of female employees working in this organization, I'll have to pass the gender column as range. This is my gender column. All right. And the second input that I have to pass is the criteria. Now, since I want to count all the female employees in the criteria, I'll simply mention female. Right. Let's close this bracket and check. There are 518 female employees working in this organization. Right. So let's make a new, let's create a new table for COUNTIF. Here we'll find the total number of female employees. Right. This can directly be copied from here and pasted. It can be pasted here, right? So this is 518 employees. Let's find the total number of male employees in the organization and simply mention the COUNTIF function. I'll pass the gender column. And in the condition, I'll simply mention male. Right, so I'll close the bracket and execute. So there are 482 male employees working in this organization, right? And since we already know that the total number of employees for which we have this record of data is 1000, right? So we can simply add up these two numbers and check whether the sum is 1000 or not, right? So the sum is 1000. So the data is perfectly fine, right? The output that we are getting is perfectly okay. Right? In the similar way, we can find any number of maybe people belonging to Black ethnicity, people belonging to Asians, right? People who are Caucasians, and finally, people who are from Latino, right? So we can simply apply the COUNTIF function here. We can mention the range, right? The range is the ethnicity column that we are going to pass. This is the column, all right? And in the criteria, we'll simply mention, since these are, let me just once check. We are okay, so we are counting on for Black. So let's see how many employees belong to Black ethnicity. There are 74 employees. right? Or instead of mentioning black as it is, what we are going to do is let's remove this and mention the name of the cell as a reference, right? So this is W15 that contains black, right? So the count will remain same. Now what can be done is I'll simply double click here. So 404 are the Asian employees. This is W16, right? 271 are Caucasian and 251 are Latino, right? Again, if we add all of these together, we should get 1000 as the total count, right? So if we execute this, again, we are getting 1000 as the total count. The data is quite verified this way. Right? So I hope everyone is able to follow the COUNTIF part, right? You can simply raise your hands to confirm this if you're able to follow how COUNTIF works. All right, great. Great. So I'll give you a quick homework, right? Your homework will be you have to count using COUNTIF function the people who are from United States. All right. The employees who are from Brazil, the employees who are from China, using the COUNTIF function. Basically, you have to count the total number of employees belonging to these units. All right. And then you have to cross verify whether you are getting the correct output by taking the sum of the employees. Right. In the similar way, you have to count for the business unit and departments as well. Right. So before we can proceed ahead with this, let me walk you through a function called unique function. What unique function does is it will give you the total number of unique counts of a particular column. Right. So let's say in the gender column, for example, we only have two unique values, which is first is male and second is female. Right. So these are the only two unique values in the gender column. So this is exactly what unique function does. If you apply a unique function on the gender column, let's say I'm applying it on gender column, it will give me male and female as the output. And this is for the gender column, right? In the similar way, you can apply unique function on any column to get the unique values, right? So let me use the unique function first for the this is the business unit, right? So let's check how many unique business unit do we have, right? And here we can see we have only 4 unique business units. First is research and development, second is manufacturing, third is specialty products, and fourth is corporate, right? So now your job is to apply a COUNTIF function on all these to count the total number of employees who are working individually in these units, right? In the similar way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the unique function. All right, I'll apply the unique function on department column this time, and we'll find what are the total unique departments that we have. All right, so we have 6 departments. First is finance, second is marketing, third is human resource, fourth is engineering, fifth is IT, sixth is sales, and seventh is accounting. Your job is to find out the total number of employees working in these individual departments. Right, so these will be your homework. All right, so how can you download this Excel sheet that is shared on GitHub is already discussed. Please go and watch the previous sessions. All right. And if you're not able to see the unique function or any function in your version of Excel, you need to upgrade your Excel because these are the few basic functions that you'll be working in and around with. All right, so this we have applied on the department column. Now let's apply the same on maybe the designation column, right? We'll be able to see how many unique designations does this organization has. This is the designation column. If I click enter, so these are the unique designations. You need to find the total number of employees who are working at this particular designation. All right. So this will be your homework. Okay, so let me just solve one or two homeworks for you. Right, so let's find the total account representatives in this organization. How this can be done is I'll simply use the countif function here. I have to mention the range. So range will be, since this is the designation column, I'll simply take the designation of the employees as the input. All right, and the condition that I have to mention is I have to simply mention the account representatives working in this organization. There are 21 account representatives working in this organization, right? So this way you have to find out for each of these columns, right? Or each of these designations. All right, so let's proceed ahead. Understanding the count ifs function, right? Count ifs is a very interesting function that works with various conditions at a time, right? So for example, let's say we want to find all the count of female employees who are greater than 50 years of age, right? For example, we need to find this out. How many female employees are there who are greater than 50 years of age, right? So what can be done is we can use the count ifs function, right? This counts the number of cells specified by a given range or condition. If I execute this, I have to mention the criteria range 1. So criteria range 1 is the first criteria that I want to mention. I want to filter out all the female employees, and female is present in the gender column. So I have to mention the complete gender column as input. So this is going to be my first criteria range. Next, I have to mention the criteria here, right? So the criteria 1, I have to mention criteria 1 is female because I want to filter out all the female employees. Next is criteria range 2. I have to find out all the employees whose age is greater than 50 years, right? So for this, I have to mention the age column, right? And in the criteria 2, I have to mention greater than 50 years, right? If I execute this, it is giving me the total count of females who are greater than 50 years of age. Let's verify this, whether 171 is the correct answer or not. Right, so what I'll do is I'll simply filter out all the female employees, right? So this way I'm getting all the female employees in the gender column, right? In the age column, I'll filter out using a number filter, right? I have to mention greater than, and the greater than will be, the value is 50, right? So greater than 50 years. These are all the criteria. If I select the complete column, I'm getting 172 as the count. Can you see this? At the bottom, I'm getting 172 as the count, right? So this basically is the number of cells, selected cells that contain data, right? Out of which one is the name of the column itself, right? So if we subtract 1 from this, we'll be getting 171, which is the exact output that we are getting in our results, right? 171. So this output is correct, right? I'll simply clear all the filters. Right, I'll simply clear all the filters. Okay, I think something is not right. Okay. Right. So this is how you can use the count ifs function. Right. This could be combination of more than one functions as well, or more than two conditions as well. Let's say all the female employees, right, which is greater than 50 years, right? And the condition is, let's say their drawing salary, which is greater than $200,000, right? So this is $200,000. This is the condition now. Let's find the total number of female employees who are greater than 50 years of age and drawing more than $200,000 of salary annually. Right. So here also we can use the COUNTIF function. It is count ifs, count ifs, right? The first condition is I have to mention the criteria range for the gender column. So I'll simply select the gender column, and the first criteria is female. This is the first criteria. Now I have to mention the second criteria range here. I have to select all the female employees who are greater than 50 years of age. Simply mention greater than 50 in the criteria, followed by the third criteria is they're drawing more than more than $200,000 of salary, right? So this is the salary column. And in this, I have to apply the third filter. And the filter is the employees are drawing more than 200,000. This is 200 and 1, 2, 3, $200,000, right? So let's see, there are only 6 employees as such who are drawing more than $200,000 of salary, are greater than 50 years of age, and are female. Let's check this data, right? Whether 6 is the correct answer or not. We'll go to gender column. We'll select all the female employees and unselect the male employees. So all the females are listed. Age is greater than 50. Right, it is greater than 50 years. So this is greater than 50, right? And finally, I have to apply the filter on salary column. Again, number filter. So the salary should be greater than $203,000, right? So these are the 6 employees whose age is greater than 50 years, are female, and they are drawing more than $200 of salary annually. Right. So this is how you can filter and cross-check all your data sets, right? I'll simply, let's say, clear all the filters. Maybe with number filters, it does not work, right? So you have to do this manually. I'll clear all the filters from the age column, all the filters from gender column, right? And finally, all the filters from salary column. Right, so we have got this original data, and this is the figure we just verified how COUNTIF works. So I hope everyone is following the count ifs part, right? It is also pretty straightforward to understand. If you're having any doubts, you're free to ask in the chat section. I'll be addressing your doubt one by one. All right. So again, you can find the combination of various combinations, right? Maybe the employees who are these kind of filters, basically. Right. So please take 5 minutes of break, and then I'll give you some homework. We'll discuss 1, 2 more topics, and then we'll wrap up with the session for today. Right. So please take 5 minutes of break and come back with a fresh mind. We'll discuss something new. All right, guys. So let's proceed ahead. Right. So let me give you a little homework. Let's give you a combination of a few data sets. All right. So you have to find the female employees from each of the country. Right. The first will be US. Second will be female along with in China. Right. Females who are from Brazil and right. Same you have to do for male who are from United States, male who are from Brazil, and male who are from China. Right. Next is you have to find the count of all the female employees whose age is between 25 to 45, right? And the salary is between $100,000 to $200,000. Right? Same you have to do for male. Find all the counting of all the males who are from the age between 25 to 45 and their salary is between $100,000 to $200,000. Right. Next, we have to find all the female directors in the organization. Right. Then you have to find all the male directors in the organization. So basically count of the total number of male directors and count of total number of female directors. Right. Then you have to find the count of all the female directors who are less than 50 years of age. Do the same for male directors, right? Find all the male directors who are less than 50 years of age. You have to find the count every time, right? Using the COUNTIF function. Right? Then you have to find all the female directors who are from Black ethnicity, right? And then finally, you have to find all the male directors who are again from Black ethnicity. Next, you have to find the count of all the female employees, right? You have to find the count of all the female employees whose salary is less than the median salary of the complete organization. Whose salary is less than the median salary. You have to find the count of all the female employees whose salary is less than the median salary in the organization. Then you have to find all the count of all the male employees whose salary lies between, right, lies between 60th and 70th percentile. Find the count of all the male employees whose salary lies between 60th and 70th percentile, right? And their age lies between 40 to 55. right? Then you have to find the count of all the employees who are living in United States and their salary is less than the average minimum salary of a male. Right? Yeah, I'll repeat this question. You have to find the total number of count of all the employees who are living in United States, but their average, but their salary is less than the average salary of a male employee. All right. So these are a few questions that you need to solve, right? You can add maybe a few more questions. Maybe you have to find the total count of employees who are living in China or who belongs to China and their salary is greater than the average salary, right? The average salary of an Asian employee in the organization, right? So these are a few questions you need to resolve. For all of these, you have to use single line of functions, right? You'll be in need to take multiple combinations of functions so that you can get the relevant output. Right, so these are a few homework based on COUNTIF and COUNTIFs. Right, so just to summarize, just to give you a summary, what all we discussed today, right? So we, of course, started with how if can be combined with various other functions or conditions, right? For example, how average can be calculated along with if, right? So we discussed about the average if function. We discussed about the max if functions. We discussed about the minimum ifs function. All right. Then we discussed about how count function works, how count A works, right? How count blank works, what is count if, what is count ifs. Then we discussed about the unique function as well. Right. So this is a general summary of what we discussed today. Your homework is to study about the sum if function, right? How sum if can be applied or how sum can be applied based on various conditions, right? So it works exactly as how average function works. Instead of calculating the average, we'll simply calculate the total sum of the output that we'll be getting, right? So yes, guys, this is all for today's session, right? I'll see you in the next session where we'll discuss about the moments in statistics, right? So just to give you this idea, we basically have 4 moments. The first moment is called the mean of the data, right? Second moment is basically called the variance of the data. Third moment is called the skewness of the data, and fourth is called the kurtosis of the data set, right? So we'll discuss about all these moments in the next session. All right, so yes, we are wrapping up the session for today, and let me share the GitHub link as promised, right? So it's advised for everyone to keep this GitHub link intact somewhere, bookmark it, right? So that you do not lose this particular link, because I'll be uploading the homework solution, everything on this link. All right, so just keep it updated, keep it preserved somewhere. All right, so I'm sharing this GitHub link with everyone. You can simply find. So I hope everyone has received this as of now, right? So we'll not be discussing anything new. If any one of you wants to leave the session, you're free to, drop out of the session, because I won't be discussing anything new, right? So those who are leaving, thank you everyone for joining the session, right? You have a good night. And those who are staying back, you're free to ask about any doubt that you have related to the topics that we have discussed today, right? So, okay, explain about the unique function is basically, it's a kind of function that will give you the unique classes as output. Right, let's see any other question. Okay, so you did not understand the ifs function on multiple conditions. Ifs is basically applied on multiple columns for multiple conditions. Ifs can be applied on single column as well for multiple conditions, right? So instead of applying multiple nested if into a loop, for example, how we did the question where we converted grades in marks into grades, right? Using nested if, the same can be done using IFS function as well, right? So this is a homework to give an attempt using ifs function to convert marks into grades. All right, so okay, sum if once more. So basically, sum if is calculated based on the condition or the criteria that will be mentioning inside if, and will be calculating the sum of the numbers, right? So for example, let's say you can, let's say using sum if, you can easily calculate what amount of salary is being allocated to different departments, right? So when you want to use sum if, right? So you can simply, let's say I'll simply mention budget for each of the below department, right? And here I'll simply mention the unique function, and I'll simply pass the department column, right? So the departments are these departments. You have to find using sum if function whether what is the budget that is allocated to finance department, for example. So how this can be done is simply use sum if, all right? And here I have to mention the range. So range is on the criteria, range is basically the input data on which I'll be performing my criteria. So this is nothing but the department column. This is the department column, right? I have to mention the criteria now. So criteria will be finance, all right? And I have to find the sum of range. I'll have to find the sum of range of the salary column. This will give me the budget that is allocated to the finance department, right? This is the budget of salary for the finance department. Same we have to do using for marketing, human resource, engineering, IT, sales, and accounting. Okay, so how can we use ifs example where we differentiated between senior citizen male and female? So this is the column that we created for senior citizen male and senior citizen female. All right, so here we have used if along with and again if along with and. Let's do it using IFS function, right? So multiple ifs will basically check for multiple conditions, right? So my first logical test will be I'll be applying the and here, right? I'll check for senior citizen female. I'll apply on the gender column if this is equals to, let's say, female. Right. Next, I have to mention the second logical test, which is age is greater than 60 years, I guess, right? Or it was 50. Right. So once I close this is the logical test that is done. Now I want the value if this is true. So this will be nothing but the value will be senior citizen, female, right? And the second logical test will be, again, I'll apply and I'll check for the gender. If it's male, equals to, if this is male, I'll simply mention male here. All right. And the second condition is, again, age has to be greater than 50 years. Right. I'll close this bracket. And if this condition meets, we'll simply mention the name of the, could be senior citizen female, senior citizen male, right? So this is how it can be done. And for wherever the condition is not met, you cannot input any value in these cases. Right, so I'll simply close this bracket, because else part cannot be executed in ifs, because it will only take input for the logical test to be performed. Right, okay, so here extra double under quotes is present. All right, so here, since we have sorted this data, if you remember, we have sorted this data, which is why we are getting for senior citizen males and females. Let's see. Okay, so we have from here, we are not getting any output because the conditions are not met, right? But in this particular case, when we are using if condition, nested if, so else part can be written here. In ifs, else part cannot be written. Right, so until here you are getting the same responses from both the formulas, but moving forward you are getting different responses because else part cannot be executed here. All right, so okay, you did not understood the count A function. Count A will basically count the total number of cells. Those are not blank. This is very simple, right? It will basically count the total number of cells that is not blank. All right. So for example, let's say if you want to use it on any column, you're free to use, right? It will give you the total number of counts wherever any value is present, be it text, be it date, be it number, be it any other format, right? It will give you the count, but count function will only count where the numbers are present. For example, if when we applied on the salary column, we got 1000 as the output. But when we applied on the country column, the count function, it is giving 0 as the output because name of the country is not a number. And count function will only count numbers. Whereas count A function is going to count the non-empty cells, right? At the same time, count blank will count the total number of empty cells, right? So what can be done is you can find the total number of rows and columns in Excel, right? So for example, in this particular column, I did not mention anything, right? So what I can do is that I can find the total number of rows and columns in Excel. How this can be done? I'll simply use the count blank function, right? So let's say the total number of rows in Excel is, or the total number of rows, like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up till here. We'll simply use the count blank function here, right? And let's pass this particular column since it does not contain any data. Right, so this is going to give me the total number of records or total number of rows in this particular column. This is nothing but it is 1,048,576 rows. Right, let's check the same for columns. How many columns are present? So what I'll do is I'll simply insert a column here. Right, and this column, since it does not contain any data, I'll apply the count blank function on this particular column. sorry, this particular row. This will give me the total number of columns here, which is 16,384. So the total number of rows and columns in Excel is 1,048,576 rows versus 16,384 columns. If you have more data than this, you need some other tool to perform your analysis. All right, so okay, one of you is asking, can you get the notes of all the formulas? So for formulas, you can directly approach to the official documentation of Excel. Simply go through the official documentation of Excel. It has list of all the formulas along with explanations, along with examples of each of the formula. Right, so you can go through the official documentation. All right, okay, so the Excel version that I'm using is Office 365. Right, this is Microsoft Office 365 that I'm using. All right, so the difference between count and count A is being answered. Right, guys, so yes, I've answered all the queries. So, all right, so let's wrap up the session for today. Right, so thank you everyone for joining the session and you have a good day. Right, so good night, everyone. I'll see you in the next weekend at the same time. All right, so I'll try to upload the homework on the same GitHub link, right? So you don't have to worry about it. All right, so all right, thank you everyone and good night.